side, anything else you want to share? I know there's some good news that came out on the conventional multifamily aspect, right, Addison? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, that is correct. So,
Yeah.
as of the 17th, and they're still waiting for the guidelines to come out because there's one guideline I'm very interested in finding out about. But as of the 17th of November, you can put 5% down on a conventional loan up to 4 units with being able to own or occupy it. It was 25%. So that's pretty big. And the guideline I'm really curious to know about is I had problems with FHA in the past is you can't have a non-occupying co-signer on a 3 to 4 unit for FHA. So I'm hoping conventional will allow you to do that because I have had problems with that before. So if conventional will allow us to do that, that'll be a huge win. A couple other things I wanted to mention. I know someone in this chat asked me 2 weeks ago about down payment assistance in West Virginia. I didn't forget about it. I did look into it, and you can get down payment assistance. It's not the best program by reading it, but they do give you a 3.5 to 5% grant that is a repayable as a second lien. I think the interest rate for the second lien was 0%. So it's a 0% repayable on the interest rate side of it, but it's not free money, but you can get it. And then I believe someone else asked me about California as well. Oddly enough, they have one of the worst down payment assistance I've ever seen. It looks like you can get a junior mortgage, which is the same thing as a second, and it'll cover your down payment. They'll do only 3% on conventional, it looks like, and they'll do 3.5 on FHA. I'm sure there's a couple other ones out there, but that was the biggest one I saw when reading about it. So I thought that was interesting as well. I know someone asked me about that, and I didn't forget about it, and I did look it up. The
Nice.
other big things, like I said in the introduction, is I mean, interest rates dropping is huge. We don't know how long they're going to stay this low, but they did go down. I mean, 1/4 to 0.5% just in the past 2 days. So if you have any buyers that are looking this weekend, or if you're thinking about buying, it may not be the worst time to buy and get locked in if rates are going to go back up if you are on the cusp. Because I don't know if that's some motivation some buyers need to hear. I did make a lot of phone calls today to not everyone, just people who are pre-approved actively looking. And I let them know, hey, rates did go down. I do have the option to lock you in even without an address right now. They might continue to go down more. I don't think that's what's going to be the case, but they could continue to go down more into next week. We'll just all have to kind of sit back and see. But I did think that was interesting to see this week. No one really saw that coming.
Yeah.
Some other things that are coming out, like I mentioned, we have the lock for the property address for your listings coming. I have some more material coming out on that that'll actually be able to present probably in about 2 weeks on the next one. I'll actually be able to get a little slide together showing some stuff about the lock we can do for your listed properties. So we can definitely get into that next week or 2 weeks from now. But other than that, what is everyone else seeing right now? I'm seeing a slight pickup in business the past couple of days, but I don't know how long it's going to last going into the holidays.
Yeah, I'm hearing mixed things, kind of like what Alex said. It's like a very micro market specific situation. You got to really, because what I'm also tracking in San Diego is how many properties are being listed with assumable loans. And that number has increased quite a bit in the last few weeks as I'm
That's
tracking.
funny.
And I had a question for you on that topic. I am searching for a secondary mortgage company, right, that is willing to do seconds when the buyer is doing and takes over the loan, right, assumes the loan that's in first position when they buy the property from the seller. Have you heard of a product out there that would be willing to offer assistance on the second? Because that gap sometimes can be very large, right? Like hundreds,
Yeah.
100,000, 200,000, 300,000.
It's funny you actually say that because I've had 2 or 3 people call me in the last 10 days about assumable mortgages and assuming I'm in the process. And I honestly don't, I'm not the expert when it comes to that. So it's funny. I think that's becoming more and more of a niche market that we're going to see. Um, I don't know anyone right now. I haven't asked anyone. I mean, it's definitely going to be I don't think it's going to be a big bank that'll be able to do that. I think it'll be someone who is going to want to niche in that. So maybe we hear some more stuff about it from the non-QM lenders coming in the next couple of months. But as of right now, I don't know anyone who's willing to do that. Now I could present it to a couple companies and see if they've had other people asking them about it. But as of right now, I don't really know anyone who's willing to do that 100% that I could say with certainty.
Yeah, yeah. If you
I'm
can,
sure they're out there though. I mean, there's always someone.
I mean, there's a product there, right? And even if they say, look, we're going to lend up to 80% of your purchase price, that's fine, right? Or up to whatever 75, 85%. So the person still has skin in the game of 15% down payment total.
Yeah.
Right. As an example to lower that risk, but right now I haven't heard of any. I've been asking on a lot of Facebook groups, some big realtor ones, and no one has heard of it yet, but I do think it's going to happen. So I think that can definitely help and move the market more, when things are going sideways, like I'm seeing already in certain micro markets. So
I mean, it's a no-brainer. If you can assume a mortgage at 3-4%, I mean, there's got to be a huge market for that coming.
Oh,
yeah.
So anyway, I know that's not the topic, but it's the mortgage industry.
Oh yeah. I think it's just funny you said that because I've rarely had people call me about that in the past couple of days, and it's funny you guys said the Airbnb stuff because, like I said, when I was in Pensacola a few weeks ago, I Airbnb'd, and I got on Zillow just for giggles to see what was going on in the market, and I saw so many of the same properties I saw on Airbnb on Zillow, and they were all fresh within the last couple of weeks. It wasn't like they've been sitting on Zillow. They were all fresh. So I thought that's interesting. You guys are saying that too. It was like dozens of them. It wasn't just a few.
Oh yeah, things are slowing down. So, all right, cool. Well, good update. Thank you. And please, if you hear anything, reach out to your mortgage network and help a brother out. Let me know if anyone's doing that, because I think others would be interested as well here. Because if we can help the industry move product, that's the goal.
Yes.
So, awesome. Let's get into the topic: how to thrive in today's uncertain market. This is one of them. Looking for opportunities and niches, such as what we just discussed with finding secondary mortgage companies that are willing to do that. But we have more specific examples. So I'm going to stop sharing our screen so we can just kind of talk about what we want to cover. But first and foremost, I guess we want to speak more from agents working with investors first, and then we're going to talk more from investors working with agents. And of course, all of these will overlap in some capacity, but I want you to kind of think, in both ways. If you're an agent listening to this, then of course, take it from a perspective like, oh, okay, this is the way I would approach an investor. But if you're an investor, just flip the script and say, oh, this is the way I should approach an agent, right? So when we're talking about being flexible and working with investors as an agent, the first thing I can tell you when the market starts shifting, like right now, and if an investor has a property about to hit the market, like literally right now, if you have a property that you're about to hit the market, there is a high probability, if it's in a slower micro market, that you might not get offers. And you might have a threshold that you said, look, if I don't get a certain price, Randy, I might have to take the property off the market and look at other avenues, right? That could happen. I've had those conversations last year in the fourth quarter, often with flippers, and because this is the toughest market, the toughest time to list in most cases, and right, generally the fourth quarter, especially as we get closer to the holidays, it gets even worse. And if you're planning on listing something in December, you might as well wait till the first week of January or second at that point. So you keep racking up days on market. But regardless, if an investor is about to list their home with me right now, and they said, Randy, I if I don't get this number, I'm willing to go down to maybe, you know, drop the price 20,000 in a couple of weeks if I don't get any offers, but anything lower than that, I'm going to have to pull the property off the market, right? Because I don't want to lose 30 grand. I'm willing to lose 20. That's my threshold, but I can't lose anything more than that. And I've had those tough conversations, right? And I'm about to list this property. And this is what the investors tell me, which I actually really appreciate. And that's one of my pointers later that was going to be for investors. Be honest with your realtors. If you're having challenges with the properties and the market is shifting, like, don't make it look like everything is amazing. Just be honest. Like, look, Randy, this is what's happening. I'm willing to list it. I want to sell it, but here's what's happening. Here's the real story. And this allows me, the agent, to start thinking of ideas for you, right? And at the same time, I want to make sure that that investor feels comfortable signing a listing agreement with me, right? And I usually will sign a listing agreement for 3 months. That's usually kind of the standard that I use with my investors, so they know that I'm not trying to lock them into long-term contracts. So 3 months is usually the typical for me. But I also say, look, I respect what you do. I've been an investor, and you know, I still am in some capacity, maybe not in the flipping world of homes. And I know the pain of holding onto a property and just bleeding money every single day. So I relate to them from my own experience, and I've been there. And I say, look, if you need to cancel this listing in a month, great, no problem. I'm on board. I'm going to let you out of the contract. I'm going to put it even in writing, right? You can cancel this listing agreement at any point. The only thing I choose to do is I'm actually going to ask, look, Mr. Investor, the one thing I would ask is that you cover my hard costs on expenses. And most investors have no problem doing that, because I tell them, look, the reality is there's a lot of realtors out there that will just take a listing just to take a listing so they could say they have a listing, right? And if they hear from you where you're going to tell them what I just told you, like, hey, if I don't get this number, Randy, I'm going to have to keep the property and take it off the market in 2 months. If that realtor hears that at the listing appointment, there is a high chance they're not going to address that situation you just described. All they will do is they'll take the listing, but they'll probably won't spend much money on any marketing, because they already know, like, well, that's not realistic. The price he wants to list it at, like, that doesn't even make sense. I mean, I'll list it because I can show that I have a listing to my sphere and my friends, blah, blah, blah. But the chances of getting that price are probably low. And again, that listing agent is not going to be transparent with them about it either. And now it creates this awkward situation, right? You have a listing agent taking a listing, not being transparent about pricing. And then you have the investor that thinks this agent is going to work hard for them on this property, but they're not going to spend any money because they're like, well, I don't want to spend money, like, because I'm probably not going to have this listing in a month. So then the thing just sits there, like, literally nothing happens.
Yep.
Right. And I explained that to my investors, and I've even done this with traditional sellers, and I explained it to them, and they totally get it. The right ones, it just clicks. They're like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. And then I literally show them my list of marketing that I would do. And I tell them, look, this should cost me around $1,000 for your property. And this is what I'm going to do for you. It's about $1,000 in hard cost. If you take this off the market, all I ask, reimburse me, and I'll give you invoice for everything, and I'll tell you where I spent it. Is that fair? And they say yes every time. I've never had a seller, in most cases investors, even traditional sellers, tell me no. Because I'm creating flexibility for them, and they know that I'm going to actually go and work hard implementing that marketing plan that I just showed them. So everything is out on the table, and they know exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to hold back. And that's what I tell them. Like, I do not want to hold back on my marketing efforts, even though I know you might not sell the property if you don't get your price. And I totally respect it. And I get it. I've been there. I understand. If you have to hold on to it and find another exit strategy, do it. And I'll support you, and I'll cancel the listing agreement. Just reimburse me the $1,000, and let's move on. I'm not even asking you for money for my time, just the hard costs, please. Right. And I've had this happen over and over again. And I said, but if we sell the property, then of course the marketing expense is absorbed into my commission. So you're not paying me on top of the listing commission that we agreed upon, right? I'm covering the expense of marketing. Fair? Fair. Boom. And we both sign and we move on, and everybody knows what they got to do and what the expectations are. So that's, to me, has worked very well. I've never had anyone tell me no. And instead, as we're doing this, I stay, in touch with that investor, letting them know what I'm doing. And honestly, if we're not getting showings and if we're not getting any activity or offers or whatever, and it's not looking good, I already start talking to my investors about, what is your exit strategy? I want to help you. And some of them, they don't know, because sometimes they get kind of caught off guard when the market shifts while the property is listed. So sometimes I have to bring these strategies to the table myself. So that's one of the things I want to talk about too, is be creative and find solutions and bring them to the investor. And one of those could be, like in San Diego, we're a big military, right, county. We have a big nursing community, travel nursing, right? Those are some of the big markets. I propose, or automatically I say, look, let's look at the short-term rental market, which I know right now it's probably not the best. However, that could work if you price the property correctly and list it on the Airbnb, if you have to hold on to it. And I said, there is also a market for 30 days plus, which has a lot less red tape to go through, because some short-term rentals are not allowed in certain cities. You got to get a license for it. So you got to jump through a lot of hoops to even make your rehab that you wanted to sell, turn it into a short-term rental quick. It might not be that quick. You might not even get approved for a license in some cities. So the way around it is sometimes the 30 plus, which is no longer a short-term rental guideline that it falls under. And look for those opportunities. So I would give them websites. There's websites out there specifically for 30 plus rentals, 30 days plus rentals. And I would provide ideas to my investor, even though if you think about it, it works literally against me making a commission check. Like, right? Because if he takes or she takes the house off the market, I'm not making money. But that's okay, because the way I'm looking at it, it's like, look, if I help him here, and if this person recovers and makes money and turns this dud into a stud in some capacity and actually makes them money, then guess who they're going to remember? They're going to remember me, that I was flexible, that I gave them solutions, ideas. So the next property they have, they're not going to go and list it with anybody else but me, right? That's the approach I take, to the point where I literally give them resources to, one website. Eric, can you type this website in? I know you mentioned it. airdna.co. airdna.co is a great website to get projections on short-term rental, right? So I use that to discuss that with my investors if they need to pivot and hold on to the property. And then another one that both Eric and I use is Rental Meter. If you can put that as well in, and there's free accounts you can create, which sometimes is enough for you to use. I know I sign up for Rental Meter now because I'm doing a lot more of the analysis, but both of those have free versions that should be enough to get your clients enough information. And if you're an investor listening to this, these are the things you got to be thinking about, right? Where you have to start thinking about pivoting, because if the market is shifting on you right now and you're about to list, like, these are your potential strategies, right? Don't wait for the realtor to tell you what to do. Be proactive and start looking at it, but be very transparent with your realtor about what you're doing, so the realtor can also help you and you guys can be on the same page on this. I'm going to stop right now. Eric, what do you want to add?
Yeah, no, so that's, I mean, pretty much what I was going to say is, me and Randy talked about this, like with our investors, especially if we have a good relationship, we're very flexible. So if they need certain things done, I know for sure one of the flexible things that most agents don't want to do with their investors, but if I have an investor that, it has to sell, and like I've ate my commission on some listings and stuff like that to make sure that he gets, you know, especially if they're going to be losing money, it's kind of awkward if you're going to a closing table and getting a big check and then they're paying a big check. So we've cut commissions to help out. It's not ideal, and I would only do it if it's an investor that I have a relationship with. Um, the other part of the flexibility for me is just going to be the relationship you do have with the person. So if this is a one-off investor, they're just using you maybe because you sent just one property or something like that. There's going to be a little bit more like I'm still going to be flexible, but there's just not going to be that relationship that's there to lean on. So we do take that like into account. Like my biggest investor in Cincinnati, we'd pretty much do everything we could to make sure that he felt good. I never had him cover any costs or anything like that. We always had it set up, even if I had to eat it. Actually, cut my commission to zero with KW, and they make you pay $500 for a transaction fee if you do that. So I ate the $500 transaction fee and didn't ask him for it. That was just a big thing for me, and he kind of always knew it. So if there was a deal that went well, he would know that since I did that, he would kind of kick it back to me on ones that went well and bonus me out or give me some extras.
That's a beautiful relationship right there, man. What you just mentioned, like that's an investor
Yeah.
I would work my butt off for, right? When they, you know,
Yeah,
say like, look, you helped me here. I know you didn't ask for it, but I'm gonna basically reimburse you for what you cut on this deal because I'm making money. Like that's amazing.
yeah,
Like sort of relationships, man, like that will last a long time.
forever. Yeah, yeah. And it's always meant like I've always known he'd do that, so vice versa would do the same thing. I'd say one of the things too, as a listing agent or as an agent working with investors, so multiple exit strategies. But I think as this market starts to shift, like making sure that you have a marketing plan. Like we're not just throwing signs in yards anymore. So for your investors, doing the same thing that you would do for clients. So we do door hangers, open houses, we do direct mailers. We're getting super creative on the listing side right now. So being in Tampa, we know like the top 5 cities that everybody moves to Tampa from, like Chicago, Pittsburgh, stuff like that. So we're putting those listings in those groups. So we're finding like groups in Chicago and stuff and dropping listings in there and getting away with it, especially a ton of realtor ones. So just being flexible, but also just being willing to kind of change as the market changes. I love the multiple exit strategies. To me is perfect. Discussing with them, even when you're going to look at a property with an investor, which is what we would do. We would talk about this is what it would look like to flip it. This is what it would look like to buy and hold. This is what it would look like to Airbnb it if we had to, or midterm range rental. This is what it would look like to do what we call a wholetail, which is you buy it, clean it up, and then just put it back on the market. Don't actually flip it, and present all of those to your investor because that's important. And some of them you're not going to make, like a wholesale, you're not going to make as much money because you're not listing it for top dollar.
Well, hold on. I'll stop you there because I've made more money on some hotels than actually
Yeah.
rehabbing it and selling it fully renovated. And it's could be misleading because when you're running your
Yeah.
numbers, a lot of times the rehab, the flip with when it's fully rehabbed might show a bigger profit. But as most of us know that are investors here, that's not always the case because there's always going to be change orders and things will not go
Yeah.
as planned. And that profit will come down where if you're selling it as is, there's not much that will change, like in terms
Yeah.
of change orders. And I literally just talked to one of our investor agents in our community at EXP yesterday. She just closed on a property. This is in Tallahassee, Florida. And she got it from a We Buy Ugly Houses. She's got that franchise in her area she owns. So she got a lead from that and bought it for I think 90 grand. She's listing it tomorrow for 155,000. It needs
Awesome.
updating. So it needs updating. The ARV on it, I think she said is 230, right? So think about like, and I bet she'll probably make more money selling it, what we call wholesale, right? Than actually renovating it and going through all that and putting it on the market. And especially the pool of buyers is smaller, like it is now in general. that type of property, 155,000 is going to get a lot more eyeballs on it because the price just looks low in comparison to what's out there. So she's going to attract a lot of buy and hold investors that are going to be more handy, and they're going to want to do some of the work themselves. And anyway, so it's just another way of, and I've actually recommended that to many investors, especially during this time, because I told her, I was like, look, you got to do this now, because if you wait a few more weeks, like you kind of miss the boat, right? Because the market is not being on your side. So anyway, I love that flexibility of doing the wholesale as is. And then what it does when you do that too, imagine, like I told her, I was like, and she knows this because she listens to our training. So I was like, imagine how your negotiation goes when you're listing a property as is, doing a wholesale, knowing that you can easily keep it, rehab it, and still make money. The negotiating is so leveraged in your side, because you're basically telling the agent, like, look, here's the situation. I own this property, and she's a realtor. She's going to be listing it herself. I own this property. I'm planning on rehabbing it, but in the meantime, as I wait for my construction bids and all that, I want to just see if there's anyone that's wants this property as is, and if they do, great. I'll make a deal happen for that person at the right price. But if not, I'm going to take this property off the market in 30 days. I'm going to rehab it, and then I might keep it as a rental myself, or I might sell it completely renovated. So do you want to, make a deal, or what's going on, Mr. Agent, right? And then it's like, it is a really easy negotiation, because you don't get, you only talk to serious agents. They have serious buyers at that point. You're not getting lowball offers. Like, it is the best, man. Hotel. So it's Tamara, the term is wholesale.
Like wholesale, but with...
So it comes from two words, wholesaling and retail combined together. And we arrive at wholesale. I put that in the chat.
So and with it, so I was saying, like, for the agent, you won't make as much money because it's less of an ARV, but we do it. We typically will do it when we're getting a scope from a GC. So like for our flips, like all of our investors they'll attempt the wholesale. So they'll buy it, list it, and then if it's in reasonable, like not terrible, while we're getting scopes from GCs and starting to get all the material together, we'll have it on the market. So, and there'll be a number where it's like, my investors will be like, we'll sell it for this. If it doesn't sell for that, we'll take it off the market and then begin the rehab. And that actually helps us anyways, because then when agents do some agents will say, hey, you just bought this property for 70,000. How did you come up with the price of 280 after it's all fixed up? You can say, well, go in the previous MLS photos and look what it looked like previously. And it actually kind of helps, sets the bar. So different strategies, I think, going into it, like that kind of flexibility is super important. So, and I think pitching that as an agent builds trust.
Yeah, and then with Addison, this is a good one. So one of the things that I've done is, when I know, again, like this is all coming back to me because this was happening end of last year, is when I know that the market has shifted and we're listing a flip for an investor, I automatically tell them, start thinking about the second strategy as we speak, right? Look into the short-term rental, look into the 30-day plus. I give them the resources. I give them projections on both. And I said, if you end up doing that, you're going to have to refinance, because you can't obviously stay with the hard money loan. Like, there's no way you're going to make the numbers work on any of the exit strategies, right? That's going to crush you. So at the same time, I'm telling them to start talking to lenders that deal with buy and hold investors now, because that's what you will become, right? So then at the same time, that investor is talking to Addison, right? Running numbers and seeing like what's possible here. What's the interest rates? Like, I want that to be happening at the same exact time. So that way, when we decide to pull the plug on the listing, they already have everything in place and they can move on it fast and not spend another 2 months researching it all. Like, right. And
Eric's actually done a really good job at linking me up with a hard money lender here in Cincinnati. And he'll do exactly what you're doing. Why he's doing the hard money loan or the DSCR or the short-term loan for the clients he'll already have the clients call me and figure out their timeline for being able to pull cash out or do a rate and term, and what their options are and what they need to have in place 6 months ahead of time. So
Yeah,
that's actually a really good point that you said.
he'll do it. He'll do it before he does the loan on the hard money. So he'll do it in between that time period. He'll have Addison run them to say like, what does it look like if this person, because he's loaning money to it, and obviously he gets credit pulls and stuff, but he wants to see, can this person get traditional financing on the home if they can't flip it. So our hard money lender does the same thing. Like he shops it around beforehand.
Yeah, man, that's what you got to do. And then when you brought up commissions, so one of the things that you also could, do is like if an investor is submitting offers with you and you're tight, right? The investor is tight on their numbers, and just consider reducing your commission or maybe even waiving your commission on the purchase side, and then just keep the relist, right? So at least you still have business coming in. Yeah, you're not going to make two of the commissions, right, on the purchase and then later on the resale, but you'll get none if they don't get the deal, right? So I've done that too. I was like, look, I know you got your numbers and this is a tight one, so how about I remove myself from the commission aspect? Let's reduce that. More money to the seller. We're more competitive. Let's get this property locked in, and then take care of me on the realist at this percent. Is that fair? Fair. Boom. Now we got a deal, right? Like these are the things that you gotta be able to bring up if you want to have just business constantly coming your way, even when the market is shifting. Because the right investors working with the right agents, they're gonna continue doing business. Like it's gonna still happen. So you might put head in the sand and think like the world is falling apart in terms of real estate, but it's not. It's still, things are still going to be selling, and investors are going to be capitalizing when you're over there in the corner crying that the market sucks, right? The reality is that people are making money. So we just got to got the right team. But this is where I think professionalism is going to make you stand out. Having people like Addison, having lenders ready to go for these backup plans, giving them resources to website like airdna.co, running it for them, renter meter, right? These are the things that you need to be doing if you're the agent. If you're an investor, write these things down so you can start preparing yourself, right? Which kind of shifts our focus a little bit now to investors working with agents. If you're one of them, which I'm hoping that's, if you're on here, that's what you're doing, right? You want to understand how to work with agents better, is look for realtors that do the things we're saying. Like just because you're talking to one realtor and they're like not giving you a lot of resistance on a lot of the things we're discussing, then you're talking to the wrong realtor.
Yeah.
That's it. That doesn't mean all realtors suck. Like, no, find a one that's investor friendly. They're out there like us. Like we understand, and then it's going to be such an easier conversation, so much easier to do business. So bark at the right tree and you'll get better results, right? Because there's plenty of us out there that want to do it that way. But please be upfront. Like I mentioned earlier, like be upfront with what's happening with that particular property. Are you upside down? Maybe like be honest. Like don't hide anything with your realtor. Like let them know like, hey, I've had a tough time with this one. I went way over budget on my rehab. Like I need to sell it at this. If I don't, I'm going to lose a lot of money. So I need to get creative here. If we can't get it, I might have to take it off the market. Like I want to know that up front. So we can literally team up on this and I can help you figure this out, even if it means I have to walk away and not make any money. That's okay. It will come back.
I think part of it too, like if you're an investor right now, one of the most common things that we've all heard, agents and investors over the past couple of years is like, hey, if you bring me a deal, you get to list the property. And the guy that I first started flipping houses with, that's how he was as well. But we kind of saw that the market was going to be shifting like in the next year or two. And this was about a year ago. And he had brought up, he's like, look, like going forward. So he actually did this. He was like, every agent that brings me a deal, they're not going to be the one listing it. They'll get paid a referral. So it was going to come out of my commission to go for a referral. But he didn't want other agents listing properties when the market slowed down, because so many agents, when they list properties, don't put, you have to find somebody who's going to list the property and get you the highest dollar amount. So you can't just go to people and say, hey, if you bring me the property, you can list it, because that's great. You're getting a deal. But now that's going to be harder to sell properties if you have an agent that's just throwing a sign in the front yard and then praying for offers over the next 5 or 6 months. That doesn't help you. You have to find somebody who knows how to get it in front of as many people as possible and get you that highest price point. So I think the switch for investors with the flexibility thing is going to be finding agents that understand when this market starts to shift, how to sell a house as it's sitting. It's no longer just posting it on Zillow and you have multiple offers.
Yeah, and are they going to allow you to get out of your listing agreement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I literally had investors get caught up in a 6-month listing agreement, and the agent would not let them out, and they were doing a terrible job for them, and they wouldn't let them out of the contract, and I couldn't do anything. Like, they wanted me to list it, and I'm like, I can't. Like, what am I going to do? Like, if you want, go complain to the board, call their broker. I mean, I gave them ideas, but my hands are tied. Like, you signed a listing agreement. You did not interview this realtor the right way. So it's not my fault. I mean, I would love to help you. I can't. Right. And that's tough, man. When they're just sitting there and the realtor is holding the listing hostage and won't let them out, ain't doing its job, and they're bleeding money every month with hard money costs. Like, it's sad, man. I specifically remember who it was. I know which agent it was. Anyway, that was a shitty situation all the way around.
Yeah.
But,
and it happens more often than people think, especially when this market starts to slow. I know the last year in November, December, when this started originally, before it picked back up, there was properties in our area that were like that. The sellers were super disappointed, but it was like, the agent put a sign in the yard and then just prayed that it'd sell. And that's great, but you have to put in the work. You have to market it. Like, this is back to how real estate's going to be, which is getting it in front of as many people as possible.
Yeah, another thing I would add is just be patient too, because I know there's a lot of investors out there that, also on the flip side, think like we're miracle workers, right? That all of a sudden, like, we're going to do something different and get them a price that's not even, justifiable with comps. Like, I mean, it can happen in the seller's market. Like what, micro markets even today still have that. Like Alex, like he just got multiple offers over list. Well, if your market is slowing down, then, and you don't get those overbidding anymore, like, no, just be realistic and be patient. Market times are going to start increasing. So as an investor, understand who you're working with, but also have some patience with us, right? With the realtors you're working with, and be open to ideas to make some quick changes and pivots within the listing every few weeks. So when a realtor comes to you with a idea of like, hey, maybe let's I like doing this one, like increase the buyer's agent's commission instead of dropping the price. And like in San Diego, if you're dropping the price by 10,000, that's laughable. Like what is that going to do on $1 million home, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, look, instead of dropping the price by 100,000 or 50,000, what if we increase the buyer's agent's commission first? Especially if we can justify the value of the property, right? I mean, if we're overpriced, well, then that's a whole different conversation. But if we are priced right, and we have comps recently that just sold that justify the $1 million, what I would test out first is say, look, what if we raise the buyer's agent's commission to 4%? Leave the list price where it's at for now, for another few weeks, but instead raise the buyer's agent's commission from 2.5% to 4%. That's $40,000 for a buyer's agent if they get you an offer. But doesn't mean you've increased your expenses by 40,000. You've increased it by 1.5%. So you've actually only increased it by 15,000, right? I would much rather spend 15,000 extra instead of reducing the list price by 50K, right?
Yep.
So test that out first. And I would always test that out first before, again, dropping the price, unless I'm overpriced. Then you might have to do both, right? So that's one idea. that I propose for investors, and we've done that. Then, of course, decrease pricing, that's an obvious one. But Eric, speak to also, and I've heard this, but I'll let you speak on it because you heard about it, actually increasing price when your property is sitting.
Yeah, so we've always done price reductions. I haven't tried this personally, but I know agents that have that recommend it. And if you do a price increase, it's kind of like a last resort, like if your listing is going to expire or if you really need something before you take it off. If you increase it by the price by 5 to 10%, weirdly, it's going to give an update to buyers and tell them that the price is increased. And anybody who's seen the property, saved it, or shown it, it psychologically tells them, hey, there's interest on this property that you've shown interest in previously. And it actually garners more. People have done that and got multiple offers, or they've done it, come in and been like, hey, we'll give you what you guys were listed at before. And you can actually negotiate up instead of negotiate down. So I've heard of it working really well, actually. So
Yeah, I've heard of a couple of investors doing that. I haven't done it either. But I think it's more about just, I think the takeaway there is really just making some changes every few weeks so you don't just allow the listing to sit there stale the same way for months on end with no creative ways of doing slight changes. Because the idea behind any change we make is for the listing to show up in the buyers that are searching online, which is pretty much everybody, and they're setting up their search criteria on Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com. I want that property to reappear in their inbox because I made that change. And most of the search filters are set up where you can say, inform me of new listings, of price changes, right? And status changes. So if I change the price, that buyer that was searching on Zillow is going to get an email. Hey, the price changed. And they're going to get, what, the price went up by 10K. And then be like, wow, the price went up. Wow, that's interesting. Let me take a look at this property. Like, that's not normal to see. And then boom. And then all of a sudden they're like, wow, we kind of like this property. Like, it's all about refreshing them to the same property. Like they're right. That's all it is. It's a psychological game, right? And how do I get my listing to the top of their inbox for them to see it again? That's really what we're trying to do. So increasing or decreasing. But the other one I like to do is take the listing down for a week, expire it, and then relist it, which is kind of annoying because you got to sign all new listing agreements in most cases, which is fine. And I've done it, and then relist it. And then now most MLSs will pick it up and it will still show that the days on market, it will add the previous 30 days if it was on the market for 30 and continue counting on. So it doesn't necessarily won't look like 0 days on market. But I've seen, even in my own MLS, that sometimes it doesn't do that. It will literally show as it's a new listing with 0 days on market, right? And even better than Zillow, I've seen same thing, pick that listing up from being syndicated from the MLS, because that's how it happens. And it doesn't pick up the fact that it was listed a week prior, right? For 30 days. And it will literally show on Zillow like it's a brand new listing, which it will show that it's a brand new listing no matter what. And the truth is, most people don't scroll down to see if it was even listed before. What they are looking at is, oh, wait, they look on their inbox like, new listing, 123 Main Street, interesting. And they click on it. That's all I want. I want them to think this is a new listing, even though I had it listed, a week ago and it's been on the market for 30 days. And all I do is I change, usually I don't even change the price. I just change the main photo. So that way, if there's even a chance of them remembering the main photo, that it's actually different. So in most cases, we will use a beautiful outside photo. So then for the new relist, the one that I expired and relist, I'll use, let's say, interior kitchen photo, right? As the main photo. So when it hits their inbox and they click on it, the main photo is different than what they've seen before. And most people will not even remember that property because they either didn't even look at it, or they've looked at so many properties that they forgot about it. And it's all about being in front of them once again with this property, right? At the right
Yep.
time. That's all it is. So like these little tricks, which require work on the realtor side, on the investor side, because now I have to redo all the paperwork. But again, if the investor is flexible, the investor is going to also appreciate your flexibility and strategy of being creative and doing these things instead of what a lot of realtors do. They just kind of let the property sit and be like, look, Mr. Investor, the market shifted. We just got to wait and just pray and hope that something will happen. Like, no, yeah, you can pray, but you got to take action. Like, allow God to move with things that you gonna go and do. So anyway, that's a big one that I know that most agents don't do, and I would really, really look into testing that, because it works. And every time we do it, there is an increase in showings, and it leads a lot of times to offers. On the property that had no showings previously for 30 days, all of a sudden now, when we relisted it, we have showings again, right? And it's all because it hits all the inboxes for all the buyers that had all the search criteria set up for that property. So I think that's all. And we're at top of the hour, but anything you want to add to kind of wrap this up? Put a bow.
No, I like it. I think flexibility and creativity go hand in hand. So, there's going to be a lot of trying to stand out over these next couple months for sure, but maybe even up to the next year as things start to shift. So just constantly honing in on your skills and adding new stuff is what we're about. And I'm excited.
I have one more. Make sure that an investor is on board for rate buy downs, right? So then you can work with Addison or your lender you're working with and create different scenarios, right? What that would look like for the buyers. Like, you have to be proactive as the listing agent working with investors. And if you're an investor, you got to be flexible and allow us to market that and be okay with offering a buy down with the right offer. And yeah, it's going to cost you 10, 20, 30 grand. Like, it could cost you quite a bit of money, especially in like high price points like San Diego, but it's actually better for you to buy down the rate, and it's cheaper than reducing the price again. The numbers work in your favor by doing that. So, and we don't have the time to go into it, but do the math. Pull out a calculator pull up on Google a mortgage calculator and do the math and see what it costs. It's a lot cheaper to do than lowering the price. I've done it, guaranteed. Right, Addison?
Yes, and I'd like to say there's almost no investment rate right now that doesn't have points on it anyway. So sometimes the difference between a quarter of a point on a rate really isn't that much different from what they were being quoted in the first place.
Yeah, got it. But it's not cheap. It's not cheap to buy down. So,
no.
All right. Well, other than that, see you guys in a couple weeks, and let's see what this landscape brings to us all across the country. Maybe Alex is going to continue receiving multiple offers, and while
send some of that luck my way.
Yeah, while Eric is trying to figure out how to sell his listing. I mean, who the heck knows?
It's pain.
I hope
right
it
now.
closes next time we talk.
I hope it does too for you. Fingers crossed, everybody.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Awesome. See you guys in a couple weeks.
See you guys.